Good evening, everybody. Tonight we're going to tie up another fly. We're going to be tying the famous Chubby Chernobyl. The Chubby Chernobyl is possibly one of the most famous hopper patterns in the United States. There's a lot of variation to these patterns, and the one I'm going to tie tonight will look slightly different than this one, but it will work the same. The Chubby Chernobyl is supposed to imitate a grasshopper, a large stonefly, any large bug that lands on the water. The reason they're so successful is all of this fluff up here. This fluff is made out of hydrophobic material called parapost. And the parapost helps this fly float super high. And it floats for a really long time. Very rarely are you having to dry out your fly and reapply floatant, because the Chubby Chernobyl just floats so well. And that means that you can drop a nymph or a trailing dry fly or an emerger, whatever you want, except for maybe a streamer, under the Chubby Chernobyl. The Chubby Chernobyl will sit on the top of the water column here, and you can float a nymph below it. And so you can work two water columns at the same time. And that's why I love this fly so much. Is not only is it extremely realistic, does it look like a bug, does it float well, but you can use it to fish water more effectively. Now, we're going to be using 2x long dry fly hooks, round bend, down eye, 2x long, 1x fine. I'm going to be still using this yellow thread that I used in my first video. It's thin, but it's strong, and the color doesn't matter too much because it'll be covered up by everything. We're going to be using this Scud dubbing rainbow color for the body. We're going to be using some of this flash, and then we're going to be using two colors of parapost. And then, of course, some legs, some rubber legs, and some foam for the foam body. I would say the Chubby is probably the first fly that I'm going to reach for in my box, whether I'm fishing water I've already fished or I'm fishing water that's new to me. It's just so incredibly reliable, and the way that it works like a bobber is pretty unmatched. I mean, there's lots of large terrestrial stonefly-like patterns that do the same thing that a Chubby Chernobyl does, but I would say none of them are quite as simple as the Chubby Chernobyl, and that's what makes it so awesome. Is it's relatively quick to tie. There isn't much nuance to the pattern. There's not very many techniques you need to know to learn how to tie it. It's something you can kind of just do, which is so awesome. so much for being strong. I'm supposed to be packing right now for a trip that I'm going on. I'm flying back home, not tomorrow, but the next day. But I need to be packed up tonight because I'm leaving from work, directly from work, tomorrow evening. And so, I need to bring my bag with me. But, I figured I would tie up a fly real quick. I've really been itching to get out and do some steelhead fishing, but I'm going home for 6 days, and then after that, I work for 8 days straight, 10-hour days, and it just makes it hard to get out and do things when the sun is almost already set by the time you get off work. Plus, I'm just tired with, after a long day of work. So, I'm hoping to get out in early November. I'll have an off period of 6 days again. I'm really gonna give it the old college try. So, the wonderful thing about this pattern is you do it in segments. You finish a segment, you move on to the next. There's 2 segments. This is the tail segment. There's going to be some legs here, some fluff here. Tie that all in. Move up to the second segment. Finish that segment. We're done. Easy peasy. These are the rubber legs. I really like the cylindrical rubber legs. And I really like this barred coloration, the dark orange and the black. I think it looks really good, really natural, really buggy. The trickiest part of this fly may be orienting these legs the way that you want them and having them sit the right way. It's a lot easier with the cylindrical legs than some of those rectangular style legs. If any of you guys tie flies, you probably know what I'm talking about. They're typically a little bit cheaper. And some of them have like sparkles in them and stuff. They're great. I have a whole bunch of those, but I really do prefer the cylindrical stuff. right now I'm just breaking this pair post up. You can see it's kind of, I guess, just the way that that's made in the manufacture, just the way it's manufactured. There's little segments, and if you want a really long strand of uncurled stuff, you gotta just kind of go in there and break it up. I used to have a really handy homemade tool that I use, but I just don't know where it went. It's just disappeared on me. Yeah, tomorrow's gonna be day 8 of work, and man, after 8 days of work in a row, you're ready to be done. I'm definitely at that point where I am ready to be done and have some time off. 6 days in a row is a blessing, don't get me wrong, but sometimes, man, sometimes I question so I'm tying in this pair post. It's going to be pretty short here. I don't want it to really extend it beyond the end of the fly. I'm going to fold this pair post over, just double it up like this. Create a little bit of bulge in the front so that you can catch it, just like that. I'm using pretty loose wraps right now. I don't have a ton of tension. And that's for a couple of reasons. Help keep those legs splayed out. And then also, I'm using super glue to kind of secure everything in place. Not using a lot, just using a little teeny tiny bit. And it does wonders, man. It makes you fly so much more durable. You can probably catch 3 times as big a fish with a fly that, has that structural integrity. It either has super glue or it has something else on it that makes it strong. All right, so the final bit of this section is just taking some dubbing. There's also some rabbit hair mixed in here. I mixed it myself when I was tying up some scuds last winter. I just didn't use up everything that I mixed. But yeah, this rainbow color mixed with rabbit fur, it does a really good job with scud patterns. You're able to, the rabbit hair, some of those fibers are a little bit thicker, and so you can get this really buggy look using that stuff. Boom. There's section number 1. Now we're just going to flip it over. We're going to throw in some wraps just to make sure everything's secured back there. And we're going to take more of this dubbing here. And we're just gonna put our fingers and spin this dubbing onto the thread. And this is what I meant by when I said the thread just isn't going to be visible, and so it really doesn't matter. And we're going to pull everything back, and we're going to tie, start tying this dubbing in flush right up against where we stopped. And we're just going to make a nice, thick, buggy body. I think we're going to have to tie in a little bit more. Just a tiny bit more. I dropped some earlier, so yeah, I've really been in a mood tying up dry flies recently. Like those stimulators, and I tied up a whole bunch of elk hair caddises. Not really sure why, but I did. Now I got them. Okay, that looks okay. Not great, but looks okay. I'm gonna fold this down. And we're just gonna tie that in. Pretty light pressure. A couple really good wraps. Kind of lock everything in place. And I'm gonna take another leg, cut it off the bundle. Get everything on, and once everything's on, then I manipulate where I want my legs, because it's really difficult to manipulate the legs before they're tied in. So I tie them in together, I clip them once everything is tied in, and then I do what I want to do with the legs. Now, we're going to cut this just to make it easier to work with. Make sure to not cut those legs there. I've definitely done that before. And now we're almost done. We're just going to take what we have left over, and we're going to make this segment just a touch longer than the one before. Tying that in with nice loose wraps. Making a little bit of bulge right at the tie-in point so I can catch all of those pair-post fibers. Really loose wraps right here. And then I'm going to go a little bit tighter, cinch everything in place, and go in with a little bit of super glue. Yeah, that's looking really good. It's going to dry as I get the dubbing ready. I'm just going to trim these now. I like to do, I hope you can see this, but I like to do like a 45-degree angle. I think that just makes the fluff look natural. That way the longer stuff kind of lays on the shorter stuff, like that. And this doesn't need to be super precise, but I do like to make sure there's not any fibers that are, way longer than the rest of them. And that looks super good right there. I'm just gonna take a touch more of this rainbow scud dubbing, and I used up all the mixed stuff, so this stuff doesn't have any rabbit hair in it, so it's going to be a little bit more difficult to wrap on synthetic stuff compared to natural dubbing. Is a lot more difficult to get onto your thread. You can use things like fly tying wax to help out with that kind of stuff. Oh, you know what? I forgot to add you know what? What's done is done. I forgot to add the pink, but that's okay. Now, I'm just gonna do kind of a tight one there, move to the front, do some wraps, so everything behind it stays tight. We're gonna take our whip finish. Oh my gosh. Maybe I should have used some thicker thread. And we're just gonna do some wraps. Boom. All right, last step of this fly. Is to trim the legs. I like to take it off the vise for this step. And we're just gonna give it a little bit of a haircut. Not taking off too much. Boom. There we go. Chubby Chernobyl. It's fluffy, there's a lot going on, but it's also simple. And imagine you're a fish, you're looking up, and you see something like that floating in the water. Like that. That looks pretty yummy. It's got the segmented body. It's got the natural looking legs that move around in the current. It's got just a little bit of flash in it due to the dubbing and that little flash tail right there. And all that kind of combines to make a super buggy pattern. But yeah, hope you guys have a good night. I I gotta get back to packing. Peace.